Sure.
Thank you guys for coming. We have Makar today. I don't think Makar needs an introduction. I think some of you may be here today just to hear Makar speak. So we're so blessed and grateful that he has made it here, and I know the list of commitments he has, so we are very appreciative. And we're talking about a very useful topic, the skill of agreeableness. So thank you so much, Makar.
What's up, guys? Nice to see all of you. All right, so we have a very in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. We have a very important topic called the skill of agreeableness. And it's kind of this specific skill. First of all, I am not talking about agreeableness as a personality trait. Okay, very important, because usually when we talk about agreeableness, it's like, oh, this is an agreeable person, they're easy to get along with. But when we say personality trait, that someone will just say, well, I wasn't born that way, or that's not my personality. That's why we're not talking about a personality trait. We're talking about a skill. Skill means you can learn it. It's like learning how to ride a bike. You learn it, and you get better at it. So we're talking about the skill of agreeableness. So the first thing I want to just give you, just to kind of get the juices flowing, is some common scenarios between couples. A wife is explaining her emotional experience during an interaction, and the husband interrupts to say that her experience does not align with what he meant or intended. She's saying something, oh, and you did this, and it really bothered me, and he goes, you're overreacting. Or that's not what happened. It wasn't 5 times. It was really 3 times. Or it was just once. Or 5 times. And so you find couples, when I work with couples, they're talking, and the wife, just hypothetically, I promise I'll get to a husband example. The wife is saying, oh, and he did this and this and that. And then he interrupts her and says, it wasn't 5 times. And I'm like, wait, but that wasn't even the point. Like, there's a bigger issue here. It's about 5 or 3 or 2 or 1, right? The husband is telling a story, and the wife interrupts to correct some details. Like the husband just kind of telling the story to a group of people, and the wife interrupts to correct some details. The wife responded to an issue when the husband wasn't available to provide input, and the husband criticizes the wife for how she handled the issue. You shouldn't have let the kids eat that. Why didn't you say X to your coworker? Like she's telling him about an issue at work, and he interrupts to say, well, you should have told your coworker that, or you should have told your boss this and this and that, right? And of course, the wife is thinking to herself, like, I'm not really asking for a solution. I'm just kind of like, I need to share, right? The husband makes a discretionary purchase that has little value to the wife, and the wife criticizes his decisions, even though they are in no financial trouble. He buys a pair of sneakers, or he wants to buy, I don't know, like a PlayStation or an Xbox or a new computer. And there's no financial issue. That's an assumption in this example. But the wife says, well, we don't need to buy that. Like, why'd you buy that? Or we don't need to go out to eat. We already have stuff to eat at home. But there's no issue. Like why disagree, So, what is agreeableness? Agreeable, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, is willing to do or accept something. Willing. When you put ness at the end of a word, it makes it the state, the quality, or a condition, right? So agreeableness is the state of being willing to do or accept something. Meaning, to practice the skill of agreeableness, inside of you have to be willing. There's a general willingness to agree and accept, to flow with the other person. Disagreeableness is the state of being unwilling. And imagine there's someone there, and someone told you, hey, that person over there, they are unwilling to accept anything. They're just unwilling. You'd be like, wait, I don't want to go talk to that person. I don't want to talk to them. Like, why would I go and approach someone who's in a general state of being unwilling to accept or do something? I'm going to give you some simple examples of practicing agreeableness. At the end, we're going to talk about how to do it, but it's just some examples. This is like low-hanging fruit. All of us, I mean, if any of us have ever served in Sunday school or given a lecture, very simple skill is when someone asks a question, you just affirm what they say. Say, that was a really good question, or thank you for asking that question, or I really appreciate that point that you made. This is like 101 here. It's like easy, right? So by the way, I probably do it so automatically. If one of you says something, I might just say, thank you for that question. That was a really good question. And the other person just says, oh, wow, like, I asked a good question. Like, that was really good. Thank you. Yes, I'm so glad I asked my question. I'm encouraged. And other people will watch, and they'll say, wow, this is a safe place here. Like, this is a time when it's good to ask questions, because questions are welcomed here. Right? Can you imagine a home where questions are not welcomed? Imagine a marriage where comments are not welcomed. That's a very, very lonely place to be, a very scary place to be. So that's an example of practicing the skill of agreeableness. That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. I really appreciate it. Showing empathy is a way to practice agreeableness. Because when someone is saying something and you're empathizing with them, and they feel heard by you, they feel understood, they feel listened to. You're showing that I'm in sync with you. I'm on the same page. We're flowing together. I agree with your existence. I'm with you. Jesus said to the Samaritan woman, in that you spoke truly. She said, I've had 5 husbands, and the one I'm with now is not my husband, and he affirmed her. He agreed with her. He found something to agree on. By the way, there were so many other things that he disagreed with, like the whole thing about the Jacob and worshiping on the mountain and all of that. But he started with agreement. St. Paul to the Athenians, when he was in Athens, he said to them, for as I was passing through and considering the objects of your worship, he said, he's affirming them. He said, guys, you guys are so genuine and authentic and you're truth seekers. I even found on an altar with this inscription, the inscription on the altar was to the unknown God. He said, I affirmed them. Therefore, the one whom you worship without knowing, him I proclaim to you. Are you guys seeing what he's doing? Right? You see what Jesus did? You see what St. Paul did, right? He's practicing this skill, right? We all know in the church, in the book of Revelation, to most of the 7 churches, Jesus starts with, I know your works, that you are this good thing and this good thing and this good thing and this good thing. But you have this thing that I hate, but you do this good thing, right? Starting off with something where he agrees, okay? Is everybody with me so far? All right. So, why, my dear beloved brothers and sisters, why in all these discussions with our spouse, with our partner, are we so disagreeable? Like, why can't we just start off with agreement? Why are we always starting off? I don't mean to use the word always. I tell my couples not to do that. But why do we so often start off with disagreement? Our spouse is a partner saying something, and we're like, yeah, but there's 5 million billion things we agree on, but the only thing I could talk about is the thing we disagree on. So I'm going to list 10 reasons why in the moment. Later we're going to talk about more generally because of our early life. But what I want to talk about now is just in the moment, what could be going on for me and you unconsciously that could make me disagreeable, okay? Is everybody with me? This is going to get a lot of text here, but don't worry, I'm going to read it all right? Number 1, I just don't want to ignore this point, but I'm not going to talk a lot about it, which is you see the detail that is being disagreed upon as being significant. Okay, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to acknowledge that sometimes you need to disagree, like right away, probably. okay? For example, if it's your profession to quality control something, right? Like I remember I was talking about this topic and a pharmacist raised their hand and said, but like, it's kind of like my job to make sure things are right. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. And I know a pediatrician who said to me one time, like, when I pick up an infant, like a baby, I can't help but to see problems, like to look for problems, right? And I said to myself, thank God, I need you to do that. Like, that's what we need. Like, I need someone who's looking for issues, right? But basically, if that's not like your job, don't do it, right? I review a lot of financials, right? I remember one time I was presenting to a group of internal auditors, and I said to them, there is a problem. You just haven't found it yet. But there is a problem. It's in front of you. You just haven't found it, right? So, but that's when it's your job. In marriage, it's not your job. It's like your anti-job, actually, in marriage. Right? It's the opposite of your job, right? So, now let's go through the remaining 9. Why am I so disagreeable in conversation? Because perfectionism is rearing its head. Perfectionism, whenever you hear perfectionism in your head, just connect it with the word anxiety. I'm so anxious about things being perfect. So I'm in this conversation with my spouse, or you can imagine you're in a conversation with your child. Your child says something, and you rush to correct. You edit. You just beat them up verbally for messing up, right? I'll tell you this experiment that was done. There's a book, by the way, called Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child by John Gottman. Highly recommended book. Please read it. In that book, it talks about this experiment, which is they showed parents a game, like how to play a game. Okay, they would show the parents how to play a game. Okay, and then they brought their kids in, and they had their kids play the game with the parents watching. So the parents knew how to play by then, but the kids, it was their first time playing. And then some of the kids, they were playing, and of course their kids are trying to figure it out. Some parents, they saw their kids trying to figure it out, and they said, no, stop, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. And they started to correct them. Some parents were so anxious about their kids not performing well that they took over and started finishing the game themselves. And then there were some kids where the parents, it was a very small percentage, some parents where the parents knew how to do things, and they were encouraging their kids. It's something called scaffolding. They encouraged the kids, like, you did this and this really well, next time try to do this thing, right? And then they kept iterating over and over until the kid got better and better, right? But the kids whose parents were jumping in and correcting or criticizing them, those kids later on had lots of issues growing up. It's another topic for another day. So why am I in conversation with my partner and being disagreeable? It's because maybe I have perfectionism and anxiety going on. Another reason is I want to show that I have value or significance. If I wasn't here, something imperfect would happen. There was a church that I used to go to, and actually similar to this. You know how you have icons here, but these are the icons that are supposed to be for the iconostasis. But also, if it was like a feast day for a saint, many churches put an icon of the saint with a candle in front of them for that day, right? And it happened to be an older church, so they have all the icons for so many saints, right? So almost every time you'd see an icon there for the saint of that day, or more than one. There was always this servant in the church. During liturgy, he's passing by, and passing by, adjusting the icon. Moving it, adjust it by 2 centimeters. Or moving the candle, making sure the little handkerchief thing under the candle's position right. And I'm like, dude, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. We've done this thousands of times. Why do we need to edit this icon thing all the time? We're doing it. We know what we're doing. And it's during liturgy so distracting. I'm like, nobody cares. Just close your eyes. Pray, right? Why so many edits, right? All the time. And so, but for many people, their disagreement is their way of saying, I am valuable. You need me. If I wasn't here, that edit wouldn't have happened. Aren't you so happy that I exist? Because I edited this thing. I made a point here. You guys get what I'm saying? These are kind of like complex points, but this is hard. This is like real stuff, okay? So, another reason is you admire or are proud of, or are envious/jealous of, your spouse's ability to hold people's attention, and you want to ride on their coattails. So sometimes your spouse is like really good at getting attention, or just having like keeping a good social group around them. And so you can engage if you don't have anything to, you see, agreeing is kind of boring, right? Agreeing is boring. Like, it's not exciting. Like, if you say something and I say to you, oh, I agree. Maybe you'll fall asleep. No, you're not gonna fall asleep. But you'll be like, oh, okay, thanks. All right, thanks. I'm glad we agree. But if I say, oh, well, actually, and you're like, oh, wow, disagreement. And then you'll start listening and getting, and we're gonna, right? By the way, some parents don't know how to connect with their children emotionally. So the way they make emotional connection is through conflict, right? And children the other way around too. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how to connect with my friend or my child or my spouse, but I do know how to fight with them. And I know fighting will create emotional interaction. It might be negative, it might be bad, but I know it works. So this is and you guys know how like the media works, right? We don't read articles in the media about agreements. Actually, even if there's an article about agreements, it will be about disagreeing with that agreement that happened, right? That's how it is. People want to read about disagreements. You are using the disagreement as a distraction from the underlying issue. Maybe you're disagreeing about, why your spouse is coming home late. Your spouse came home late. Or your spouse helped their parent with something. But really the underlying issue is that you feel neglected. You feel unloved. And you've been feeling that way for months or years. So the disagreement about, we could spend 20, 30 minutes arguing about coming home late. But really the deeper issue is a lot more deep. It's different, right? You are afraid that if you show any agreement, that it will be interpreted as global approval. Meaning, if I agree with anything you do, I'll be signaling to you that I accept everything you're doing. Which is, by the way, not a healthy way of thinking. Because can you imagine a couple trying to grow from a conflicted place, and one of the spouses is afraid to agree with anything? Like, you're stuck. You can't do anything anymore. Are you guys with me on that point? So, of course, by giving any agreement, you're not saying I approve of everything you do. But you do need to agree. Sometimes, in a session with a couple, if they're like really, at it, at the end of the session, if I'm feeling like I really want to end on a slightly positive note, or I don't know what they're gonna do after the session ends. Like they're living with each other. Like I'm gonna close my Zoom, and they still gotta look at each other or whatever. So sometimes I say, can you please give each other an affirmation? Something you appreciate. It's not something you agree with, something you accept. Of course, if they're very conflicted, there's awkwardness. There's usually very little eye contact when they do it. Like, well, I appreciate, that. And of course, you get one that you're a very good parent. That one, it's nice, it's not bad. But it doesn't say anything about the marriage, right? It's like, You're a good parent. Thank you for being a good parent. But if it's the first few sessions, we'll accept that. They're building momentum, right? But part of the reason why it's so hard to give that affirmation is because if you're highly conflicted, you're not used to affirming each other at all. You're in this perpetual state of when I enter the doors of my home, there will be disagreement. We will not, I am not going to be on the same page with you, which is a terrible thing to be in. You're using the disagreement to indirectly communicate that there is broader discord. I'll give you an example. Sometimes any person, but here we're talking about marriage, one of you could be burnt out. Like you're just exhausted, you're tired. And why are you burnt out? Because you're not exercising, part of the reason why, is you're not exercising enough self-care. You're not having boundaries to take care of yourself. You gotta take care of yourself. There's things that you can do for you that no one else can do for you, okay? That's very important. So, but if you see your spouse is exercising self-care and they're, happy, like, wait, what? What? You're not allowed, what? You're happy? Oh, you're happy. Do you know what I'm going through? Like, I'm miserable. My life is terrible. And you're tired, you're burnt out, you're stressed out, maybe you're anxious, maybe you're exhausted, whatever it is, and your spouse is not, because maybe they're exercising proper self-care. And so, you're trying to communicate, but it's very hard to appreciate, to articulate that point. You don't know how to say it. Hey, I'm actually kind of frustrated because you have something that I need to have too. And so what you end up doing is you end up finding ways to disagree. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, but you shouldn't, or you can't hang out with X, Y, and Z. Or no, you're going to be too happy. Of course you don't say that. Number 8, this is very important. You want to avoid vulnerability in the relationship, which is more likely to happen if there is agreeableness. Very important. We got to be able to talk about our emotions. We got to be able to talk about what's going on, how we're feeling, sad, happy. We have a lingering feeling about something that happened. We have to be able to bring that up. It's so easy to avoid bringing that up if you say, oh, well, because we're fighting. We're not in a good place, Or if you're just too focused on shallow disagreements. So one way to avoid being vulnerable with your spouse is to disagree with your spouse on anything. Just stay in disagreement. Stay not on the same page. And that way, you can go through the rest of your life and never open up. It's great. Not great. Psych. It's not great. Okay? You have nothing to say, but can call upon the opposite of what was just said to contribute to the discussion. Some people, you see, especially in the Western, in individualistic cultures, like our culture here, you kind of need to have something to say all the time. You gotta have something to say. You just gotta, you just need to have an opinion. Even if you don't know anything about anything, you need to have an opinion. Come. You could go on the street, find anyone, ask them, what's your opinion about anything? Say Jesus. Say politician. Say, what's your opinion about saving money? What's your opinion about cars? Whatever. Everyone's going to have an opinion. What should I do with my child when he X, Y, and Z? So some of us we feel this pressure to have something to say, and so our default approach to say something is to disagree with what was just said. That's pretty low value and high risk. The last reason is that you think you're providing comfort by presenting an alternative view, missing that what might really be needed is empathy. For example, oh, I was so frustrated that my mom did this and this and that. and we say, oh, but you know your mom loves you, right? It's not the point. Yeah, but what? That's not the point. And you can imagine you say that to a young person, like a teenager. The teenager's coming to talk to you about a problem, and you say, but you know your mom loves you, you know your parents love you, right? That's not. Or your child is telling you about a problem, and you say, I'm doing this because I love you. Like, what? Those are not the same points, right? It's different points. They're dealing with an emotional process, and we're missing the whole thing, invalidating the whole thing. We're saying, my love is what matters, your emotions don't matter. That's what we're saying. My love towards you, this one-directional love. My love towards you is what matters. Your emotions don't matter. That's not right. We got to respond to the emotions first. Come to the love you thing later. Actually, if you respond to the emotions, it's the most loving thing you can do. It's the way to show love, right? So, what are the costs of disagreeableness? Is everybody with me so far, by the way? Are you guys bored or you guys with me? Okay, all right, good. Disagreeable responses usually lead to a negatively charged interaction. And we've probably spoken about this another time. You guys know it's a Gottman thing. You need to have a 5 to 1 ratio of positive to negative interactions. Okay? So some people are like, why can't I talk about this problem with my spouse? Well, you can't because there's no leverage. Your relationship is already so negative. You can't bring up another problem, even though you need to talk about it, but you can't right now. There's no leverage in the relationship. Everything is already negative. What are you going to do? Bring up another problem? You think people are going to be happy to talk about that? No. So if you have a disagreeable response, that's very likely going to lead to a negatively charged interaction. Another way to think about this, instead of thinking 5 to 1, think 1 to 5. If I'm about to do something that might lead to a negatively charged interaction, I need to make sure I have identified 5 positive ones that are happening around that negative one. By the way, the positive ones, you can generate them. Just say to your spouse, hey, I love you. Thank you for this. How many of us, when we want to bring up something negative, think to ourselves, well, I want to start off with something positive? No, we just dive right into it, and it blows up in our faces. All right, disagreeableness has an opportunity cost. Opportunity cost, by the way, means the opportunity you gave up. Like, for example, I'm here for an hour. That means I'm giving up being somewhere else for an hour. So I needed to make sure that this is worth it, right? Same thing for you, right? You're giving up this time for other things. So that's your opportunity cost. But you will incur an opportunity cost if it's worth it, if you get the benefit, right? Disagreeableness has an opportunity cost, one of which is that we miss the opportunity to appreciate and enjoy the areas where we align, are similar, are in sync. I could have agreed, but I chose to find the disagreement. I could have found the yes, but I chose to focus on the no. Where is the yes? And I hope, can I start with yes? That's the question. Can I find the area where we agree, just like Jesus did, just like St. Paul did? And if the intimacy is already low, any additional disagreement will blow up. Disagreeableness often fuels anxiety, self-doubt, self-criticism, negative generalization. A person who is inclined to disagree as their first response is usually an anxious person. They usually have a lot of self-criticism. What they are doing to the other person is really what they're doing to themselves all the time. Their disagreement with their spouse is really their disagreement with themselves. They're not reconciled with themselves. Do you guys get that point? Like somebody says something, I just respond negatively. Really, whatever I just did happens multiples more inside of me, if that's what I do. And that's to the self. Now to the other. Disagreement often fuels general negative perceptions, criticism, and mistrust of the other. If in your mind the script is my spouse is this, all this negative stuff, you're going to have a very, very vivid bad picture of your spouse, a very detailed one. Like, you know how, I remember one time, so sad, it was really sad. I was working with a teenager, and you know, the parents weren't really like they just weren't. I kept saying in my head, I'm like, I can only do so much with just one part of the system. Like, I need to talk to the parents, and they really weren't making themselves available and all that. Finally, I somehow, by God's grace, got to talk to the dad, and then I got to talk to the mom. And the mom just started listing all these negative things to me about her son. And I said, can you tell me anything positive that you see in your son? And she looked at me. She said, no. I was like, what? Like, this is terrible. Like, this is a disaster. Like, this is so bad. And she, like that's what she said to me. Now think about what his experience of her is, right? Like, his experience of his mother. And he told me one time he achieved something that is, it's an achievement for him, but it's a very common one that all of us achieve. But it's an achievement, nonetheless. And he came to his mom, he came home, he was excited. He said, Mom, look, this is what I achieved. And the mom said, so what? I don't care. Any homeless person can do this. I wish you focused on your studies as much as you focused on this. And he was telling me crying. You know, he's like, she doesn't even care that this is what I did. Like how could she say that to me? Like, I worked so hard for this. And because she thought to herself, her twisted, like skewed, she doesn't have bad intentions. I know she loves her child. But her like skewed approach is that it's my responsibility to find the wrong. The way I'm going to raise my child is to tell him what's wrong, what he needs to correct. But of course, it was blowing up in her face for years. And she couldn't get it. Now, the same thing was happening with her husband. What? Like, and no one's happy. Like, no one's happy. Like, no one's happy. How incompatible could you possibly be that you can't find anything to agree on? By the way, you can find something to agree on with anybody. We're all human beings. We're all the same in so many ways. How incompatible could you possibly be? It's basically, you're not that incompatible. That's the point. You just don't know how to focus and find the compatibility. You don't know, maybe you're afraid of being vulnerable. Maybe you've been doing this so much that all you can see is negative, and that's all you see in yourself too. Disagreeable actions use up, these are all the costs of disagreeableness. Disagreeable actions use up more mental and emotional energy than agreeable ones. Arguments leave you feeling exhausted. Usually leave you feeling tired. That's it. We all know. We all know we have, every once in a while, you have this friend who they love like debate and stuff, right? And you're like, all right, bro, take it easy. Like, I don't need I don't need that. Like, just whatever. Like, who cares? Be right. Doesn't matter, right? Which is basically you saying, like, I resign in this. I agree with you. Like, just go. But they're not satisfied because what they're doing on the outside is their inside. They're yearning for something, right? Overall, The more you practice disagreeableness, the less happy you are, and the less happy are those around you. Okay? All right? Are we guys good? Are we good so far? Okay, we have like 3 more slides. Okay? All right. How did we become so disagreeable? Like, how did this even happen? This mess that where we think it's, we're valuable because we disagree, we avoid vulnerability because we disagree. How did this happen? Some reasons. One, we did not grow up in homes that had an agreeable culture. Every home has a culture, right? Your home has a culture. The one you grew up in, also the one you're leading now, has a culture. And by the way, please, parents, whoever's a parent, know that you're like the driver of that culture. You are the one who defines the culture, basically. But some of us grew up in homes where there was a lot of sarcasm, rigidity, criticism, low emotional intimacy, or abuse. By the way, all these things are connected, right? If there's low vulnerability, some of us, the sarcasm is too much. But the sarcasm is a way to avoid something. So be careful with sarcasm. It's fine if we're just having fun for entertainment, but it could really quickly slip into some vulnerability avoidance, criticism, hurt, disrespect. Saying, I'm never a fan of delivering a message indirectly, right? If you have a message you want to deliver, don't make an offhanded comment, to try to get your message across. No one ever says, oh, wow, I really appreciate the constructive criticism you delivered via that, joke about me. No one ever says that. And now I'm going to change. I feel motivated to change. No one ever says that, right? No one ever. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Rigidity, low emotional intimacy, and those things often feel like abuse anyway. You imagine the rigid parent or the rigid spouse. The person on the other side of that very often feels some form of compromise, even to the level or to the extent of abuse. I don't have a voice here. I don't have a voice. I can't say. This is too rigid. The rules are too tight. Agreeableness comes with a general exposure to the risk of being hurt or having an avoidable outcome. So, if you're saying yes, and that type of conversation happens a lot of times, you might hear something that, hurts. You might hear something that hurts. Those with higher anxiety or fear around regret feel that it is safer to be disagreeable. I'll explain why. Because if you're saying no to everything, where does that leave you? It leaves you in the status quo. Nothing is changing because everything is no. Hey, I would really appreciate if, when you have XYZ type of issue that you bring it up this way. I would really love it if we spent more time together. If you're just in the no's all the time, you're in the status quo. Why would someone want to be in the status quo, even if the status quo isn't healthy? It's maybe they have a fear of regret. They don't want to make a decision and then regret it. So it's easy to just say no, but they discount the cost of disagreeableness. This one, we accepted the deception that disagreeableness is an admirable quality. Some people think that, wow, this person is so smart and wise. Look at all the other things they have to say. Amongst traders and investors, there's a saying that says, bears sound smart, bulls make money. I don't know if anybody here gets that, but I'll explain it. It's very simple. That in the stock market or in trading, a bear is someone who thinks things are going to get bad. Things are going to get worse. The market's going to get worse. A bull is someone who thinks it's going to get better. Okay? So the saying is, bears sound smart, but bulls make money. And we think that, you disagree, so you have a lot of good things to say. And also, we sometimes think that the person who is agreeable or optimistic, we think it's a weakness. Like look at that dummy over there, all happy all the time, smiling. What's wrong with them? They don't know how hard life is. They haven't experienced enough struggle and pain. What? You know what's really interesting is that St. Paul talks about joy. Meaning like happiness, positivity, optimism, hope. Like hope is a big deal. We should have a whole topic about hope, right, in the Christian life. The person who has hope, who's optimistic about life, we say in the Creed, we look for the resurrection of the dead and the life of the age to come. We're looking forward to it. That's the way Christians operate. And we think that the optimistic person is weak, is a fool. What happened here? Which is saying that if you're pessimistic, you're the right one. What? Like, can you imagine that? We don't know how to directly communicate about underlying issue, so we act out by practicing disagreeableness, which we said already. Okay, so how do we practice agreeableness? Are there any questions, comments, or disagreements so far? I don't know if the format takes questions. Is that at the end? At the end? Okay. So, there's the last two things. Practicing agreeableness starts from within. It's very, very important. This is first an issue of your heart, of my heart. And please, my dear friends, please, even for just 3 minutes, 4 minutes, just ask yourself, do I love and admire and give the benefit of the doubt to my spouse? Do I see my spouse as good? My spouse is a good person? Like a lot of times I have to remind couples, like, do you think your husband or you think your wife woke up this morning and said, how am I going to destroy my spouse's life today? They destroyed your life, but do you think they woke up and said, I need to find a way to do it. I need to figure this out. I got to destroy their life. Never. Like usually, unless there's extreme situations, but usually never, ever. Like it doesn't happen, right? Which means that your spouse is good. Which means that your spouse has good intentions towards you. I was just talking to a couple a few days ago, and I said, she said, because they had gotten so disconnected, she said, I didn't even know he had any intentions for me. Any intentions for me. And I said, oh my gosh, like, he has so many good intentions for you. Don't you hear what he's been saying this whole time? But she stopped seeing it. She couldn't see that. I remember, is this being recorded? Okay, that's great. All right, so, okay, whatever. I mean, it's fine. The stories help illustrate points. So, yeah, no one's going to watch. Yeah. So, what I remember, when my first child was born, people would criticize me to my wife a lot. They would say like, they'd see her like doing something with our son, and they say like, where's your husband? Like, why isn't he helping you? Like what? You let him travel? You let him, you let him go serve in Sunday school, and you're here trying to take care of your son? So, why was I saying? Oh, because the reason why that hurt me so much is because people did not consider at all what my intentions are for my children in general, right? As if like I have no intentions. They don't know that I studied, I'm reading, I'm doing all this stuff because I have so many good intentions. And someone just comes in and criticizes because I'm not at a certain place while my wife might be inconvenienced, right? It's pretty bad. All right. So, practicing agreeableness, I know we're a little over time, primarily begins inside of you. It requires a particular mindset shift. And remember, if you practice agreeableness, you and those around you will be happier. So, I want you to ask yourselves these questions. Under what conditions or circumstances or contexts would this person be right? By the way, no one is trying to be wrong. So in their own mind, they are right. Why? Why do they think they're right? Ask yourself that question. Under what and a lot of times when you see somebody doing something wrong, when you really get into the details, if you care to get into the details and you make the effort and you do it effectively, you're like, oh, I get exactly why they're doing that. I get it. Like there's a reason why this person is upset, is yelling, is doing this and that. Where do we agree? What is something that I can affirm in what is being communicated or done? Will my disagreement, however accurate it is, add value or move the needle? Some of us just throw in a disagreement, it makes no difference. No difference. No, nothing's happening. Thank you for your disagreement. We're gonna do nothing with it, right? Like, and you know, you always hear a couple of spouses or parents say, we have this discussion over and over and over and over again. Our evening routine with the kids, we tell them 20 times to do this or that. I'm like, okay, like, so don't you think something should change? Like, why is from number 19 to number 20 or number 18 to 19? What made you think number 19 was going to be different from 18? If you're getting into the same fight over and over again, why is the same approach going to work? Same argument going to work? Is there something deeper, more general that I am bitter about? Oh, that's cool. Is perfectionism or anxiety affecting my ability to practice agreeableness? And then act or respond accordingly. Okay, and I'm going to show you the last slide of how to do that. It's very simple, okay? By the way, you know, someone sent me a screenshot of a page from a book a few days ago, and it's a very beautiful passage that he sent me. You know, but I'm very like, you know, inside of myself, I can be a little, I don't know what the right word is, but just a bit, whatever, I can't even think of the right word, but I'll just explain it. That I'm like I want to be very, very careful about like theological issues, like someone saying something like like compromising the truth to make a point, right? I don't want to compromise the truth. So but I'm a little rigid about that. I need to be a little less rigid about that. So I'm reading it, and there's so many good things on the page. All I could think about was one sentence that was wrong, or that seemed like it could have been better said. But I just got stuck in my own head, right? So, is perfectionism or anxiety affecting my ability? So, how do I practice this? This is the last thing we'll talk about. Number one, smile appropriately. So, by the way, like smiling is a very powerful thing. It's very powerful. And by the way, some people do not smile much. You know what I have to say to you? You need to change that. Like, I'm sorry. There are some things where I'm like, oh, like you do you know, it's your personality, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not smiling, that's in general, like that's kind of an issue. It communicates something. I'm not saying smile all the time, but you gotta smile appropriately, right? And there's different ways to smile, right? Like sometimes you could big smile, or you could just go, like to show listening. Like someone's saying something and you go, sorry, I can't do it so fakely while I'm trying to deliver a point. So, like, but you get what I'm saying? So smile appropriately. A phrase, I think I'm better understanding why you this. This is why you X, blank, right? A great phrase. Great phrase. By the way, some of these, they're worth hundreds and thousands of dollars, okay? Like the mess that it will save you, okay? So imagine your spouse is saying da 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 da, and you feel like you're being criticized, and then you respond with, well, thank you for saying that. I think I'm better understanding why you're so frustrated or why you're frustrated in this way. Oh my gosh. I think some people, if their spouse said that, they would tear up. They'd start to cry. Wow, my spouse is understanding me, is trying, even just trying to understand me. And you can add to that, with what you may be better understanding. So I kind of combine that. Like, I think I may be better understanding why you're frustrated because when I X, Y, and Z, it made you feel this and this that way, right? So if you combine those two, very good way to stay very nicely engaged in something where you otherwise could be in a big conflict. Give an affirmation or message of gratitude. I'll give you a very small homework assignment, just once. Tonight, before you go to sleep, or at some point today, give a message of affirmation to your spouse. By the way, if you feel any hesitation about that in your heart right now or in your mind, there's an opportunity there. That feeling of hesitation usually means it's a money point, right? It's like there's value, there's an opportunity, there's gold, okay? So give an affirmation or a message of gratitude. If you don't, I'm not going to be critical, but ask yourself why I didn't do it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not being critical. Maybe there's a reason, but ask yourself, why can't I do it? Say, yes, I also think that, or I know, like in agreement, or I know that we both, like if you're about to bring up a point, say, hey, I know that we both really care about the kids and we want the best for them. And then go into it, right? Consider not bringing up where you disagree or allowing for another instance of what you disagree with. Some of us, as soon as something that we don't like happens, even if it's never happened before, we have this concept that if I don't say something now, it's going to mushroom. It's going to become a big, big issue. I gotta nip it in the bud. No, just hang on a second. We even say this in dating. Like, if you go out with somebody for a cup of coffee, I don't know who's dating here, but if you go out for a cup of coffee, and you feel okay, just go out again, go out another time, see what happens. Maybe you were nervous, whatever. Maybe, you went to a wrong place. Maybe someone was having a bad hair day or whatever, right? Just go out again. Wait for another instance. Also consider not bringing it up. Try it the other's way and agree to revisit later. So that another thing is, a lot of times when we disagree, we're not deciding what we're going to do for the rest of our lives. Even if you're deciding to move to another state, you can always move back, right? You can move back. Lastly, offer to speak again later. That's a very nice way to conclude a discussion. Say, hey, I know there's a lot to talk about. Let's talk again later. Let's revisit this. Or let's continue this discussion another time. Or hey, if anything else comes to your mind, let's talk about it again. What that communicates that I agree with the process we went through. Like even if I don't agree with your point, I agree with this interaction. So we can do it again. Okay? All right. That's the end of the prepared material. Any questions, comments, disagreements, or concerns? Yes? Yeah. So I don't know at which point you may have. Sure. No, so we're calling this no, it's okay. It's totally fine. I'm so glad you asked the question because it means that the point is important, which is that wow, I just did that just now. That's cool. But yeah. No, but I do. That was genuine. I do care. The point is important, which is that this is a skill. Like it's something to get good at. Like you got to get good at it. Like find the yes, find the agreement. Like we know making a marriage work is a skill. We got to learn it. This is one of them. One of the things you got to do. Does that answer your question? It does? Yeah, it's a skill for sure. So if you're struggling with it, if you feel like, man, I don't want to do this, or I don't know how to do it, or I feel like it's not important, check yourself. Like examine yourself. Yeah. Any other thoughts? All right. Glory be to God forever. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Makar, and thank you guys for attending. Every third Sunday, we have the marriage and family meeting. So if anybody feels like inspired or called or has a specific book that they would like to talk about or share with us, please let me know. We're always accepting speakers. So thank you guys so much, and thank you so much, Makar.